Hi, this is Tim Weaver from CMVG, and I'm here with Matt Pellett from Games Master. How are you doing, Matthew?
I am pretty good, thank you.
Good. So, you were a big fan of the first Darksiders, so I guess by association, that would make you a big fan of Darksiders 2, because I think it sort of follows on quite neatly from the first game, does it?
Yeah, it does. So it's set during the middle of the first game, actually. The first game starts off, it's the apocalypse, and then war's banged up for 100 years in jail, essentially.
That old excuse.
Yeah, that one, we're all used to that. And this is where Darksiders 2 jumps in. It's in that spot before Darksiders carries on and finishes off. So it's a bit of a side story rather than a true sequel. But that's only in terms of the story. I think in terms of the game, in terms of what it does, in terms of the world, gameplay, everything that Darksiders 2 is about is very much above and beyond what the first game offered.
Okay, so for those people who are unfamiliar with Darksiders, it was a lot of people compared it favourably to Zelda. Would that comparison would presumably still be the case with the sequel?
Yeah, I don't think it's quite that simple because there are a lot of games that have been chucked in the Darksiders melting pot, shall we say. Zelda is one of the most immediate and obvious comparisons I could draw, just in terms of the world, the dungeons, the way it's set up with picking up maps and then bosses and sub-bosses.
Because we've got a bit of platforming here.
Yeah, we've got some platforming. So Darksiders 2 borrows heavily from Prince of Persia as well. In the first game you played as War, he was this lumbering guy, quite clunky, and that was great for combat, but you tended to stomp around the world quite a lot. You play as Death in Darksiders 2, and he's quite a lithe fellow. He jumps around. You've seen him just there, wall running and hopping between beams and stuff. And it feels very much like a Ubisoft game with, in Prince of Persia, when you're having to cross these massive gaps and there's no real obvious ledges to do so. And it works really well in Darksiders. It's this great addition that wasn't in the first game but always felt like it should have been. And yeah, it's another piece of the glorious puzzle that is Darksiders 2.
Okay, so at this point it's probably worth pointing out that Ben, the guy who reviewed it for CMVG, is not here this week, which is why we've drafted in Matt, who reviewed it for Games Master. And I guess it's fair to say Matt probably enjoyed Darksiders a little bit more than Ben did. I think one of Ben's problems with it was that it maybe spread itself too thin. It tried in its combat, in its platforming, in its RPG elements. I mean, what would be your take on that, Matt?
I don't know. I mean, I was really sold on the world. It's a very big, expansive world. There are a few gear-gated areas. I don't think it's as clever as, say, Zelda was in its gear-gated zones and the backtracking. I don't think Darksiders offered quite enough in the way of gear that you can collect and go. So in Zelda, for instance, whenever you got the hookshot or the boomerang or whatever it might be, I always found myself revisiting old dungeons to go see what I could unearth. What was new. With Darksiders 2, it felt like I could just wait till the end once I've fully toured up and then revisit old zones. I think the combat holds up really well. It's got a great combo system. There's a lot of stuff to collect, a lot of different weapons, a lot of sub-weapons, and which ones you pick have a massive impact on how you actually fight. There's one thing that is interesting, there's lots of side zones as well. So there are areas and dungeons and lots of side quests that you don't even have to worry about. It's only for people who are completionists, really. And while that may not be for everyone, I really like that. I really like the idea of there's this whole world and the critical path's only going to show me, say, 70% of it. The rest is all there to explore if you want it.